Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Hey, it's me, Egbert. E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
There he goes, Egbert laying down the essentially the gauntlet, saying we better pull in big numbers or we're history.
Has he accused us of being real talkers yet today?
No. Real talkers. We're not real estate agents, so that's one good thing about us.
Hey, you know, again, to use another rap quote, Brad, the rapper Andre 3000 once said, "If you say real talk, I probably don't trust you."
Why is that?
It's a verbatim quote because when he wrote the song, which was the mid to late 2000s, rappers would start a sentence by saying real talk. Like that's another way of saying, hey, listen, or hey, allow me to be frank with you. They'd say real talk. So Andre came out and said, if you say real talk, I probably don't trust you. Because if you have to preface it with real talk, what's the rest of your talk?
I guess it's all BS, right? Which is our old show. And by the way,
yeah, hey, we were going to talk about Shelley. Did you have news about Shelley?
Well, you know, I was going to call her on the air, but I don't think she'd want to talk about this. Let me go back to the FAA thing for a minute. Last break we talked about this. They say that they're going to hire, and this is the quote from the FAA. They're going to targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. They include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism. Now,
it's the last part of a sentence. Here's a tip for writers. You always put the thing that you want to have the most impact or get the biggest laugh. Always put it at the end of the sentence, because if you put it at the middle of the sentence, people are going to rush through it. So you always want to end a sentence like that with dwarfism.
Okay, you know, see, what's interesting about this is the FAA, and I know someone who was medically retired from the FAA, okay, because of the fact that they had a particular disease that the FAA determined that they could not properly do their job, okay?
You know a dwarf?
No, I don't know dwarf.
Oh.
But here's the other aspect of this. I've researched this, and I've had people call me out on this, and I recently checked into it, and I am right. Not that I'm always right. Most of the time I'm wrong, but in this one I am right. Mandatory retirement age for an air traffic controller is 56.
Ageist.
Now,
Ageist.
Well, once again, I say that. Now, here's the other interesting thing. If you are 31 and you apply to the FAA for air traffic controller, sorry, their cutoff is 30. You cannot
that makes sense. You got to hit that sweet spot.
Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get people in, obviously, for 25, 26. Well, actually, the training, I think, takes a couple of years. So in other words, they're talking, you know, let's say you got in at 30 and you retired 56. You really are only going to be your air traffic controller for probably 24 years because of the fact that you're probably going to go through 2 years of training. Okay? Now, here's the other problem why they're having a problem with air traffic controllers, finding them and hiring them, is because of the fact that they have a limited lifespan in their job, which once again they have a mandatory retirement age of 56. They have a different pension system which takes more money out of their paycheck every paycheck because of the fact
that it allows them to retire early.
Exactly. In other words, they're building the retirement fund for that, the pension fund for that, for them, because of the fact that it's not like most government employees or like teachers that can work 30 years. They can't work 30 years. If they start at 30, they can work 26 years and they're out.
So you have short-term pain in terms of more being taken out of your paycheck, but you're able to retire early, ostensibly.
Right. So what they do is, I don't care if the air traffic controller, is what color they are, what sexual orientation they are. I want them to be the best of the best. And once again, I find it hypocritical that, like, for example, if I showed up down at Busch Stadium today and I knocked on Mo's, whatever is it, what was his name? Mo
Zalak, yeah.
Mo Zalak's door, and I go, hey, Mo, I'm here to pitch. And he goes, how old are you? I go, I'm old. I go, have you ever pitched before? Yeah, back in Corey League when I was 12. And you know what? I'm a pitcher. Well, he'd laugh. I go, are you practicing ageism on me? I mean, because of the fact that I'm an old guy? Are you because of the fact I'm out of shape and I've got some infirmities? Because at least my doctors tell me that. Are you telling me I can't be a pitcher for the Cardinals? And
he would say that it's a meritocracy.
Exactly. The bet and
now the pushback on this though, Brad. I'll play devil's advocate here. The way that I could see this working is surely there's some sort of back office jobs you would have where if you had for lack of a better term, a sheltered environment where folks who might have psychological challenges or folks who might have cognitive challenges, is there a safe place where they can work, where they can do some back office, whether it's paperwork or administration or something like that, that allows them to have a livelihood and not be in an air traffic control tower directing planes?
But John, my dad told me something a long time ago, stuck with me. I come up with my own saying. He came up with one saying. He didn't come up with this. He says, life isn't fair. You know what
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Life isn't fair. And once again, and let's take a woman for example, okay? Mm-hmm. If you're a woman who's 25 years old, let's take two women. One woman who's 25 years old and on the heavy side and wearing no makeup and wearing a pair of Army combat boots and camo pants and
doesn't have striking facial symmetry.
Right.
And she doesn't have an hourglass shape.
Right. And then next to her is a woman same age who is blonde, who is, curvaceous, who is very attractive.
Go on, Brad.
And dressed very nice, has the nice makeup. Okay, most people, who are you going to gravitate to? You're going to gravitate to the attractive woman. That's just human effing nature. Let's be honest. That's human nature, okay? And once again, is that fair? No, it's not fair.
Well, Brad, and a corollary to that is if you bring a man into a room and you're selecting a leader and you have a guy who's 6'2" and carries himself well and makes strong eye contact and isn't afraid of tough questions, and then you bring somebody in who's a manlet, who's 5'4", who has a lisp, who apologizes for everything he does, who do you think's going to be a better leader? I'm not 6'2", and I'll tell you that I'm gonna go with that 6'2" guy.
Well, but see, once again, I mean, let's take women and men and dating and marriage, okay?
Yep, let's do it.
I know lots of women that tell me that they would never date a guy who is no more than 4 inches taller than, or no less than 4 inches taller than them. So in other words, if they're 5'6", the dude has to be 5'10". And I know a guy who is 5'6". And he's on the dating scene, has been for a long time, got divorced quite a few years ago. Matter of fact, maybe coming up on 20 years, long time. I have to call him and see if you want to come on the air and talk about this because he actually is a very interesting guy. But he talks about, he is so obsessed on finding a partner. He goes to all the, there's various bars around town that have like the dating nights and things like that.
That's a sad existence. Go ahead.
Right. And what's interesting is, he finds that he becomes, quote unquote, friends with these women, and they love talking to him, but they don't want to date him. You know what I mean? Because of the fact
it's the sad fact of life. He gets immediately friend zoned.
Right.
Now the other thing that you have to that I would say though, Brad, is does he give off? I'm not. When you give off to a woman vibes that, hey, I'm non-threatening, I'm friendly, want to chat, you're immediately put into the friend zone.
Well, first off, he's very successful, good-looking guy. I mean, like most women, if you said, rate this guy, he's an 8+. You know what I mean? He's not
on paper. You're saying on paper he's an 8+.
No, I mean if you look at him, if you look at his face, he's an 8+. Okay.
Okay, but when he stands up, you're like, oh,
right. And once again, you know what? Is the dating life, is somebody going to show up at a bar and say, okay, I'm here from the government, and you women over here, this guy, you have to date this guy because even though he's only 5'6",
exactly right, Brad.
you have to date this guy. Why do I have to date him? Because he's only 5'6". okay, well, you know what? I don't want a 5'6" guy.
And you know what? So Brad, the other thing is, so one of my favorite mantras that I've learned from some great authors, again, we'll cite a Rollo Tomasi or a Ryan Stone. You cannot manufacture attraction, and you cannot negotiate desire. So if women at one of these bars or anywhere looks at a guy and says, not sure, he could show you. He could log into Schwab and show you his 401k. He could show you his stability and how orderly his garage is, and it doesn't matter. And because if she doesn't have a genuine burning desire for him, it's never going to happen.
And it's funny you should mention that. I've been to this guy's house. It's like neat as a pin. You could eat off the floor. The guy still makes a lot of money, has had a very successful career in his field, has made a ton of money to the point where, could write a check for probably a Ferrari. It's that kind of stuff. I mean, if you, hey, look at my sports car. But once again, life isn't fair. And the other,
absolutely not.
The other saying,
so the best option for him is if he looks at women who are past their epiphany phase. So the epiphany phase, as you think about late 20s to early 30s, it's when a woman, and I know that this guy's older, but let's talk about women in general. If women go through their party phase where they have their peak value, let's say it's early 20s among men who want to maybe have a baby with them, once women get to a provisioning phase, there are women out there that would quote unquote settle for a 5'6" guy if he had a lot of resources, maybe if they had a financial need, but those aren't the kind of women that this guy wants. This guy wants a physically attractive woman. I'm not speaking for him, but you get what I'm saying? Like he is going, so it's a matter of who will settle for whom.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, but if you're 5'6" and you carry yourself like somebody that deserves to be in the friend zone, you're going to be spending a lot of time by yourself.
Let me add another wrinkle to my friend's equation. He loves women who are taller than him. He's not.
Well, and you're into what you're into.
He's not looking for 5'2" women, or 5 foot women or something, or 5'3" or 5'4". He's looking for women who are 5'9", 5'10", in that range, and they want nothing to do with him because of the fact that if they're 5'9" and he's 5'6", and they put on their 3-inch heels, they're pushing. They're 6 feet or 6'1" if they're like 5'10" or 4-inch heels, whatever, and they don't want to, because they go out in public and they don't want to tower over their guy. And once again, okay, now my second saying is my dad says life isn't fair, which is true. Life isn't fair. And a lot of the thing is like, okay, what's the difference between Taylor Swift when she was, at 18 years old? God, I heard a great story. Can I tell you what, let me sidetrack this story real quick, okay? Armstrong and Getty, who will be in the air here in 2 minutes. I don't know which one. I'm still trying to figure out which one's Armstrong and which one's Getty, okay? He told the most amazing story that, 20 years ago or something like that. He's at a radio station. He was working in the radio business. And the sales manager comes into the studio and says, hey, we need you to come down to the cafeteria. They had a cafeteria, probably a big kind of radio station, our guest room or whatever. Somebody has like a snack area, with vending machines, stuff like that. We've got somebody here who wants to sing some songs for us. And people are going like, he said, everybody went like, oh, I don't know.
Is it a hobo?
We're busy, and no, come on down. This is an attractive young lady, and I think she's really talented, and she's going to sing some songs for us. So I don't know which one it was, Armstrong or Getty. They go, okay, fine. They go down to the lunchroom, and here's this young blonde lady, and she gets up on top of a table or something.
Ooh,
they had her step.
I like
on,
it already.
They had her step on something. I mean, maybe it was a chair or something like that. And she has a guitar, and she's singing to them. It's Taylor Swift.
Wow.
Yes, it's Taylor Swift in her early days. And here we go again, something that does not happen anymore. She's driving around the country and showing up at radio stations and wanting to be interviewed on the air. She's knocking on doors of radio station. Her, and I guess she's got an agent or a handler or something like that, are driving around radio stations, showing up early because they know the morning shows are the most listened shows. They're knocking on doors saying, hey, this is Taylor Swift, and she's going to be in concert.
Yep, that's how you had to do it. You know what? There was no YouTube and there was no TikTok.
Right. She's going to be in concert at the Elks Lodge down the street tonight. Can she come in and promote her show and maybe sing a couple of her songs? And you think about that. Now, My question is, what's the difference between that 18-year-old Taylor Swift who's going around the radio stations and another girl who may be even more talented than Taylor Swift, but is now working as a dispatcher for a police department because she never got the break? Once again, life isn't fair.
Yeah, absolutely, Brad.
Okay, and my other one, which we don't have time for, but we'll talk about this tomorrow. Freedom is messy. Okay, freedom is messy. Think
Absolutely.
about that. Let that cook in your mind. Okay.
Boy, we give people a lot of advice. We did a good public service today, Brad. I'm proud of it.
And I'm not talking about the Cardinals. Maybe tomorrow. Okay. Say goodbye, John.
Bye, guys.